Hey everyone, welcome back. Now, I know that this is usually, or often, a retro game based channel, but I do like to cover new stuff that I play as well. I admittedly do get to new games a lot less and have to be way more selective, but I've been playing the God of War franchise since the very first game on the PS2, and honestly, I've loved every single one of them. But after playing through Ragnarok, I'm really interested in two questions. One, is this the pinnacle of God of War? And what is going to happen next with the franchise? Now, this video is going to run over what stood out in my mind and how it relates to those two questions. It's not a review, it's sort of just my take on the game. And yes, there will be some spoilers in this video, though I will try to keep them to a minimum. The first thing I want to talk about is really just how awesome the storytelling is in this game. I mean, it is truly top-notch. I'm really glad the developers were really willing to just flesh this out and just make this the most grandiose story that God of War has ever seen. And honestly, that also comes with a really snappy pacing and really great world exploring, side quests, and combat that really feel like they're kind of pivoted around the story moments. And this really, really works for me because I like good stories. You never feel like you're playing too long before another great story segment pops up. Honestly, all of the God of War games have had really good stories, but this time, I mean, it's just massive. You get to control Atreus, you meet the giants, spend time in Asgard, and you just see a far wider range of gods than you ever saw in 2018. And that really, really pays off. And one thing that really stood out to me was Odin. It was really cool getting to see Odin. Usually in other media, he's like this kind of like old cranky guy, or he's like this kind of like extreme wisdom, more like kind of quiet or terse, or at least that's the impression I'm getting. In this game, I mean, come on, he's such a silver-tongued devil. Like, he's just like a morally gray guy. You listen to him and you want to believe he's good, you want to believe that he's someone you should follow and take guidance from, but at the same time you're like, no one trusts this guy, he's backstabbed everybody. And I just give the voice actor all the credit in the world for making this character believable and making me want to like him, despite whether he's good or bad. And honestly, just one thing I want to throw in here. Did they really use Thor from the Marvel movies as their inspiration here? Like, he's like fat and bloated in this game, a massive alcoholic, and we'll get back to him in a minute. And honestly, the story really intertwines with this idea of meeting all the gods and just how much character development is going on. Like in 2018, it felt like there was a few other characters like Brock and Sindri who had a lot of development, but it felt like the story was really, really tethered around Atreus and Kratos in their relationship. In Ragnarok, it feels like they just took all these story arcs and just blew them up, and somehow they all work, they're all fascinating. For example, I mean, Brock and Sindri do have more development in this game. Brock finds out he died, and there's a lot of stuff happening there. But also, with Freya. Freya ultimately becomes a companion. You find out more about her background and how Odin screwed her over and how she's trying to help her brother. And I really thought she was like a really good female character in the game. Like, it felt like it needed kind of a matriarchal character. And also, I just really, really loved that Thor and Thrud, I really love the part where Atreus is in he gets in the bar brawl there and Thor is just pissed drunk. And, Thrud is kind of, she's in the daughterly situation where she has to watch her father kind of devolve into this kind of rampant alcoholism. And it's clearly something that's happened many times. And it's just really amazing to see all these characters get all this development and see all these arcs grow. And yeah, just so much character development. And really, to me, that's something that God of War has never really done before. I feel like it's always been centered more around Kratos and that character. And you don't really see the perspectives of other characters as much. Whereas this time, you see a lot of different perspectives. Now, another thing, when I was first playing this game, the first few hours I felt was more like a walkthrough of 2018. I was like, oh, okay, this would be more of the good thing I remember from 2018. And then it felt like the worlds, as I started exploring other realms, just got really big and massive and almost bloated to the point where I felt overwhelmed. I'm like, oh my God, if I want to finish all the side quests, if I want to really explore everything, it's just going to take hours and hours and hours. However, the side quests, as I realized I could stick mostly to the main quest and just do side quests when I want, they felt more inspired. The side quests in 2018 felt like they were kind of thrown in there, and there were definitely some good ones. I enjoyed, the trials and Niflheim, for instance, but It feels like in this game, the developers almost took a note from something like Witcher 3 and turned these side quests into an opportunity to explore the backstories of the characters and to really give you really cool information on Norse lore, the character's backstory, and they felt like they were alive, like the quests were worth doing for themselves, not just for the rewards, just to learn more about the realms and the lore and the characters. Another thing, I mean, come on, move over, Tomb Raider. You have been dethroned from being the queen. Yeah, we'll call it the queen because, it's Lara Croft, the queen of puzzle games. There is a new king in town, and that is God of War Ragnarok. The puzzles were really good in 2018. I thought they really did a good job of making the axe, throwing it into like different puzzles and stuff and just using that throw mechanic. And this time I was just flabbergasted at, just how we basically had the same weapons and everything from 2018, but just how many new puzzles there were. There's so many puzzles in this game, and I got stumped a number of times, and it just felt like a nice break from the action, and this is what I wanted from the Tomb Raider reboot series, but I'm getting it in God of War. Honestly, the puzzles just might be the highlight here. And one thing, that I really want to talk about here, because I remember I did a podcast back in like 2018 when we played that game, and one thing I complained about in 2018 was just how lifeless the world was. There were no animals, there were no villages. It just felt like the only things that were alive were Kratos, Atreus, and the enemies you fight. This time, boom, baby, we got everything. There's little creatures running around, there's aliens. For instance, when I was riding the boat in the realm with Freya's brother, I'm not going to remember these realm name guys, sorry. There's like little monkey creatures hanging from trees. Awesome. I really just think that level of kind of life in the environments makes it so much more immersive. One thing I kind of had a gripe with was just how much you could do with all the upgrades and all the armor and stuff. It felt like you were opening all these chests and acquiring all these pieces of armor and new equipment and stuff, and it's a small gripe, but I felt like there was just a bit too much of that. I always felt like I had this long list of armor to upgrade. I never knew if I should sell it or keep it, and that was kind of just a little bit annoying. It felt like it was almost like RPG level. And I love RPGs, but honestly, I wanted God of War, not different classes or engaging in RPG levels of depth with equipment and upgrades and stuff. And yeah, you're equipping runic spells, and you got you can upgrade all your weapons, and you're upgrading side characters. It's nothing that really breaks the game or anything, but I would say for me it was a little bit much. I'm not sure how other people feel about that, honestly. I think some people might love that, and that's totally fine, but for me, I just felt like, I was like, this is God of War. I just want to be able to choose some cool upgrades and techniques for my weapons. I don't want to have to choose between a bunch of different handles and different kinds of armor. Let's keep this pretty simple. And of course that brings me to, the combat. Did it live up to the last games? Well, the combat was really, really awesome in 2018, and it's only slightly expanded here. Now, this is something I want to gripe about with a lot of games, but it really came to life for me here, is that there's a lot of games with a second character. It's kind of like an assist character in battle. Like in God of War, you press square and Atreus will shoot an arrow, or Freya will shoot an arrow, or whatever it is that she shoots, some magic beam of some kind. And anyway, I just kind of feel like that second character should be either not there or more useful in combat. I want them to engage with the enemies and actually do stuff, especially if I'm leveling up their abilities and stuff. And instead, I feel like I got 90s level intelligence from these the AI that my allies had, and so it felt like they were a burden, or just kind of I'm why are you here? Just go chill in the background and let me fight if you're just gonna sit there. And it's a minor complaint. There are some exceptions to this. There are enemies like witches where Atreus can slow them down. That's fine. That's a really cool mechanic there. And occasionally they do actually jump into the fray or take the attention of an enemy, but it feels like these NPC characters haven't really evolved since they started back in the first game I can remember is Resident Evil 4. And I just feel like this is a really lost opportunity. Atreus and Freya are great for puzzles. That's really cool, but in combat it feels like they should have been, if they really wanted to move past the 2018 and simpler mechanics, they could have maybe done a little bit more to expand their ability or make them more interesting to use in combat or more interactive. Heck, I don't know, maybe we can tag between them or something. Go crazy with these ideas, I don't know. I'm not a developer. So, I guess that leads me to the two questions. How does Ragnarok compare to past games? And I would say that I think it's less surprising of a game than the original games or God of War 2018. Like, this is a proper sequel. It's just more like, making little incremental changes to what made 2018 great. There wasn't really a shock value in terms of like, oh my god, I can't believe this game exists. But that said, I think the story just blows away all the other past God of Wars for me, the character development, the character arcs. And I really, really liked that I could play this game in a linear fashion like the original God of Wars, or do a ton of side quests and exploration in these giant sandboxes that made it semi-open world. So I think Ragnarok, because of its amazing storytelling and because of just how immersive the world is and how many ways you can play the game, yeah, this is the best God of War, in my opinion. But it's not perfect. Like, for instance, in the original trilogy, you had these really cool button successions, like square, X, circle, R1, circle, X, triangle. I don't know what happened to those. Like, this game gets a little bit more boring, where it's just hit circle as fast as you can, and I'm like, this would be cooler if there's more interaction there. And there was one part in the game where they kind of did that, where you're carrying Freyr and running away from the combat. I feel like that could have maybe come back. Nevertheless, Ragnarok's my favorite. I could nitpick it all day, but come on, this has to be Sony's flagship series at this point. One thing I've always credited Sony with is the fact that they're really good at starting up new series and kind of moving on from stuff and not letting it linger too long. But God of War, Gran Turismo, and Ratchet & Clank are the three series they've kind of had going for a long time. And Gran Turismo, I think, has sold more units than God of War, but I feel like God of War has now become their main franchise. This has mass appeal. Kratos is like Sony's Link or Mario. Sorry, move over, Ratchet. I like your games, but you're not quite God of War. And what about the future of God of War? Now, I definitely think there could be a God of War 6, but I kind of want to throw in my opinion here and say that, I think that God of War, outside of just being about Kratos, is now become about kind of the lore, in the gameplay style and the action and the puzzle solving. And I think that, they could make a game based on Atreus, or they could make a game with totally new characters. Imagine a God of War in ancient Egypt with that mythology, or Japanese mythology. The possibilities are really, really endless there. And so I don't think that God of War needs to die with Kratos at all. I'm sure some people disagree with that, and I'm totally down for more Kratos adventures, but I really hope God of War continues to turn into something different with kind of the core mechanics in place. Alright guys, that's it for me. I have absolutely had a blast with God of War Ragnarok. I hope you guys have been able to play it too. Let me know your thoughts. Is it your favorite God of War game? What did you like about it or not like about it compared to past games? And what do you think will happen with the future of God of War? Alright guys, thanks for listening. Please remember to hit the like, subscribe if you like the content, and I will be back with you guys soon with more awesome content. Game on.